Hello guys, what's up? So I wanted to make a very short guide explaining the basic theory of how to play Furious Blade, because a lot of you have been asking this for a long time. So I figured out that instead of explaining everyone individually, it's better to just have a video explaining the fundamentals of how to play Furious Blade. So basically, regarding skills, you should always take these two, Bloody Excel and Giga Drive. Currently on EU server we don't have the Bloody Excel buff, but it's still really useful because you have this passive, which when you use both of these, you get a buff of 20% critical damage for 30 seconds, which is really good to have. It gets refreshed every time you use each of these skills, not each, one of these skills again, when you have the other of the two buffs active. It's easy, it sounds probably harder than what it is, but just use this, then this, or the other way, whichever fits better on the current situation, and you should be fine. So always have this active, never forget those, it's very important, otherwise you will have no damage. Also this passive, this one, makes you have more attack the more HP you have. When you have more than 60, you will get 15% of attack. If you have less, you will get 0 extra. So always try to be on high HP. This is especially easy once you have Bloody Excel, because if you lose HP, you can just use a Shadow Step and you'll recover all your HP, or use a pet that activates commands, such as this one. This Melo attack works as a command, so I get my HP cured every time he uses his command. Another useful passive is this one, which gives action speed and attack when you are on Awakening. I recommend always being on Awakening, since you have a 30% multiplier for existing and a 10% multiplier from this. Always be on Awakening, it's very important as Raven in general. Then regarding damage, you also have this passive, which gives you 1% of critical damage per 1% of socketed action speed, up to 20%. It's a must to have 20% of action speed in your stats, otherwise you will lose a lot of damage. It's additive, it's not multiplicative though, it would be better for it to be multiplicative, but still it's better than not having it. And for damage or cleaning, you can just copy this roster and maybe change this for cleaning for something else like Cannon Blade or what you like the most. As for bossing, you should keep either these two here or switch for 7 bars. It depends on your playstyle a lot. If you play Cerulean and Furious Blade, which I don't really recommend, then it's not really worth using the skill before 7 bars because of the cast speed. It's not as slow as people think, but it's not worth. Like, you get more DPS as any of those two, although you consume double DMP. That's why I play Crimson instead of Cerulean. I prefer to have consistent damage and not depend on RNG, because if you get a reset on these skills, it's like useless. You will lose damage and consume more MP. So yeah, I don't recommend Cerulean and Furious Blade. I recommend Crimson and focus on these 3 skills. Perhaps also Sharp Charge when we get the action speed buff on EU. On all the other servers it's already there. And then I think that's pretty much it for passives. There's also a Shockwave Cutter without mod, which gives an unlisted amount of maximize. If I recall correctly, it was near 10 or 20%, but it only lasts for 3 seconds, so I don't recommend depending on it. As for stats, for how much you should socket of critical maximize, I could recommend using the same as me, but the exact percentages for 100% when using Rigomor armor are 89 point something, let me check, 88.5 actually of maximize, and 59% of critical once you have plus 11 rigor armor. If you don't, I'll list some values as for plus 7 to plus 11 rigor armor and no rigor armor. If you have every node, I think you needed something like 67 of critical and 100 maximize, but I don't recommend going for 100 maximize because you have this passive, I think it was this or this one. Yeah, this one, it gives 20% chance of the skill, only for skills, special active skills actually, of dealing the maximum amount of attack you have. So basically 25% chance of having 100% maximize per hit, not per skill. So it's really useful. I mean, not that useful, it would be better for it to be maximized, but I recommend going for around 80, 82 to reach 90, 92, 93. If you can have more without losing boost damage, that's great, but if you can't, just stay there. It's not worth investing more because of the normalization. You get only 50% of the socket maximize. I won't recommend getting more. This is good, it works well, and if you have a buffer that gives maximize, then it's even better. Although you probably won't have any buffer giving maximize regularly, but it's good to have. As for action speed, this is not optimized for this build, but you should have 20%, always at least 20%. This is the example of the meta build on up until Rosso Raid. After Rosso Raids, you can aim for something like this. This is the best one for prenup raids, and you can also change for that weapon if you're doing birth raid. If not, just keep the 7 world weapon. If you don't have IVs, you can go for more basic combos like the Igni accessories and such. I'm probably gonna show some screenshots of those combos. And well, that's pretty much it for accessories. For resonance, always prioritize damage. This part you should get everything max except inflicted boost damage, and you should also aim for cooldown time instead of PM cost if you are gonna do DPS in raids, or not exactly DPS but damage. So it's better to have cooldown time than MP cost. Like even with 20% MP cost, you don't get much difference as Furious Blade. I also use this for raids. In case you don't reach it up, you can see I barely reach it up with those accessories, and that's why I have so much action speed, because with these accessories I get 20.9, which is what I need for the passive. But for everything else, it's worth it to have the Reso accessories. I believe that's pretty much it. I'll perhaps show the buffs, how to stack them. So basically it's really easy to stack the buffs. You just need to press these 2 skills and you have all your buffs active, your important ones. Then you have to, I don't know, switch title if you have Awakening, go back to the other one. If you have the title switching system, that's even better. You can also use Shockwave, but as I told you, it lasts for too short, so I wouldn't recommend it. It also makes you a lot more mana hungry than you already are, so don't really use it that much. Perhaps in a very specific situation it's good, but if not, it's better to not use it if you don't really need it. You always want to prioritize for damage these 3 skills. This is an example of a rotation. If you main Hypersonic Stab, in case you main Rising Dance as me, which is unlikely, then you use Rising Dance before, I don't know, however it fits more. The most optimal rotation If you're using greens, it's something like this, like I did just a minute ago. You can use that one, it's probably the most effective. Don't underestimate Rising Dance, because I see a general mistake, or I don't know if mistake, but a general thing people do instead of using Rising Dance is they have 7 burst here, so they do something like this, and then they do this, this, and this, with better positioning on shockwaves if possible, but doing that is not really, I mean, it's worse because you get less damage than Rising Dance. I mean, this is a very Rising Dance is not good to compare because I have stacked damage, but it's worse because at least on bosses of this size and slightly a bit more, you deal less damage with that combo instead of Rising Dance. It's slower and it consumes double the MP. So preferably use Rising Dance if you are gonna do that. I would recommend it. Also, Rising Dance is the skill with more damage per MP consumed, which does not mean it's the best on all the situations, because Hypersonic Stab is twice as fast. But in case you want consistent damage, it's not a really bad option to aim for Rising Dance as your main skill. But this video is not really about that. You can stack whichever you want. If you want Hypersonic Stab, stack Hypersonic Stab. If you want Rising Dance, stack Rising Dance. If you want to stack Shockwaves, I wouldn't recommend that, but stack Shockwaves. And I think that's pretty much it. To do damage, never forget these two buffs, Awakening and having action speed. There's also critical passives. One is permanent, you don't have to do anything, but for the other one you have to do 5 hits per stack for it to be there, and it lasts for 5 seconds. It's really easy to stack with Shockwaves, or with Hypersonic Stab, which should give you 2 stacks. I don't know how many hit count Rising Dance has, but probably gonna give you 1 or 2, and 7 bar, the same for 7 bars. So it's easy to stack, like it's not that complicated to stack that passive, you will stack it without even noticing. That's pretty much all you need to know. As for to show damage, just in case you are curious, I'm gonna show quickly what my damage with Rising Dance is. And so just if you are curious, it's not really important, this is like an extra. So basically, a boss monster, stack the critical passive, which has, I think, 1 second cooldown, so you have to time it if you want to stack with Shockwave. So it's just to have 100% maximize, just for the sake of having it, and throw a Shockwave there, and there you see, it deals 3.1, it can deal a bit more if I stack the imprinting system thing. In case you wanna see also 7 bars and Hypersonic, there they are. I have stacked Rising Dance 35%, and because this piece is 9. So there you see. When I used to stack Hypersonic Stab, I dealt like 2.65 billions, but I increased my gear a little bit. So perhaps I would do like 2.7. Like the difference is not really that higher, but this is useful for consistent damage, this is useful for DPS. Just take that. Also, in case you have many trouble managing MP, because it's kinda hard, you can use this trait for 7 burst, MP cost 80% instead of this one. This one doesn't really increase the damage a lot, it goes from 10.5k percentage damage to 11k, so it's not really that much, it's like 4% increase, so something like that. So if you really have trouble managing MP, try to aim for this trait. This one also refunds more MP, but the MP refund is awful, like it's 30 MP, it's not really that much. So yeah, if you have trouble, try to aim for that. You can do the same for Shockwave, although I don't know, if you just in the meanwhile you wait for the other skills to cool down, you can use it. Now we shall speaking more of gameplay, if you need to reduce your cooldowns, you can do something like this. I'm showing it without awakening in purpose, but if you have the grotto title, you use Shoot Up Genocide and then the awakening, and the skills go 0 cooldown. You have to do it in that order. If you do first grotto title and then Shoot Up Genocide, your cooldown won't decrease to 0, because this passive, not that, like, I don't know where is it, here, it reduces 33 or 50 in the newer patches of the current skill cooldown. So if a skill has 30 seconds of base cooldown, it won't decrease 15, it will decrease the cooldown it has at the time the hit lands. The hit needs to land. If you, for example, just to show it, if I don't land the hit, it won't do anything. It won't reduce my damage, it will be only lost MP. So you have to hit the enemy if you want the skill to have a reduced cooldown. This is pretty useful and necessary to reduce the cooldown of the skills as Furious Blade. You may have seen it on some of my videos. I always do that. I first Shoot Up Genocide and then grotto title with either an onion or regular awakening. I show an example probably. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I forgot anything. In case you want to see my stats, this I show you briefly. You can pause and check. Now I will use the other build, so you can also check these stats. As for synergy, which I didn't explain earlier because I forgot, I use this one for birth rate. I use the one that gives revive, which is this, and because you can stack first pass skill damage, I just go for defense, ignore, and hyper damage, which is good to have, especially on the new raid. So yeah, that's it. I think that's pretty much everything. As for artifact, get damage resistance since you don't have any defense passives. Get critical and maximize, or double critical, double maximize. Everything works. And get critical damage here. That's general, though it's not depending on Furious Blade. I don't recommend using atomic cutting because it's really slow. I show you how slow it is, just so you see. Like, sorry, that's just me using the mouse because I am used to that. But this is how long it takes for it. You see it like 5-6 seconds, it's extremely slow. Also, Extreme Blade, it's way faster, it's like half the time. It deals a decent amount of damage if you have the hyper resonance and hyper damage on artifact. And another thing, in case you are still here, using 7 burst seems like it's actually slower than this, but it's faster, and that's because you can cancel the skill way before the animation finishes. So if you wait for Raven to do this second step back, then you're losing time. You can just do this, and as an example I show you where you can cancel the skill. The same goes for Hypersonic Stab. You don't have to wait for the blade to do, like, you don't have to wait for Raven to be on his basic stance, this one. You have to wait like from when he kinda finishes swinging the blade, and the Rising Dance, as you can use another skill in the air after that. You can do it faster. It's a bit harder because the timing is more precise on Rising Dance. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Another tip, I used to have that skill in Rooster raids at first when I had trouble with being hit by the debuff. So what you can do is use it like in the air and then use that, so you don't lose the iframe sequence. Another tip, if you're on a platform, press down key before Rising Dance. Therefore you reach the floor much faster. and that's better for the skill rotation. It's a trick I don't see many people doing, and it makes writing dance way faster than just doing this. Waiting for you to fall down is not really optimal. So if there's a platform, which is the case on a lot of dungeons, just press down and then press this. Because the skill goes a little low, you can see. Like Raven descends a bit, which clearly if he's on the floor he won't. But if he's in the air, he will decrease a bit his height. So not his height, his altitude, so you can do it a bit faster. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I have anything else to explain. Perhaps it took me too much to explain, but I think this is it. I don't think there's anything else I missed. In case you have more questions, go to the comment section and ask me. I will try to answer them as fast as possible. And yeah, that's a basic guide for Furious Blade. Perhaps if you want a more in-depth guide of how to rotate the skills, what is better for DPS, for consistent damage, what are my recommendations for specifically Russell Raid and Prenum Raid, then you can ask me, and if I have the time I will try to do it with no problems. Like, I like teaching others what I know and exchanging opinions on oh hey, this skill is better, but no, this is better here, because I like that. I like having a nice chat and discussing which thing is better. So if you want more videos explaining more things, be sure to ask for them and I'll try to have them as soon as possible. So see you the next time, guys. Have fun, bye bye.